Hey, welcome to another video. So today we're going to be going into the Clash of the HIVE GODS. But before I begin, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Sith Citadel Discord, link is in the description, and consider becoming a join member or sending a super thanks if you wish to further support the channel. Otherwise, let's jump straight into it. As the Guardians combated Xivu-Arath's forces within the depths of Titan's oceans, they received word from the Hawthorn that there had been a development on Titan. A Lucent Hive ship had delved deep into the waters beneath the new Pacific arcology, though for what purpose remains a mystery. Gathering a team, the Guardians brave the depths to reach the seafloor and the Lucent ship, but lose contact with Sloane as it appears a mass ritual was being conducted at the site, disrupting communications. As they delved deeper into the methane sea to reach the Hive ship, the Guardians also collected calcified fragments that held the voice of Xivu-Arath, who appeared to be journaling her tribulations since Oryx's death, towards her conquest of Tarbadal, and even Savathun's conversion to the light. After reaching the Lucent ship and locating the ritual's center point, the Guardian discovered the calcified remains of Oryx himself, and the Lucent Hive were attempting a brute force approach to resurrecting him with the light. The ritual is led by a former member of the Grasp of Nokris, Samura Nukor, now a light-bearer necromancer from the Lucent brood, along with other former members of Oryx's court. Despite the Lucent Hive's efforts, the Guardians slay Samura Unurkru and disrupted the ritual, preventing the attempted resurrection, but the revelation of such an attempt worried Sloane. Taking this news to Ikora, the Warlock Vanguard agreed to set up patrols and fortifications to prevent such an attempt again, but the situation rattled Ikora greatly. She took further measures by placing Oryx's corpse within a secured Vanguard vault, much like with the Witch Queen's remains. Understanding that there was no other choice if they wished to stop the witness, the Vanguard reached out to Amaru and offered him Savathun's body, if she were to agree to help them pass through the portal at the Traveler. Amaru counters with a bargain of his own, citing that Savathun anticipated that the Guardians would need her. They would need to deal with the Witch Queen's sister, Xivu-Arath, before he would revive Savathun. In this task, he would provide his aid in combating the Hive God of War. Despite the terms, Ikora and Eris Morn agreed, with the latter granting the Guardian a relic she forged with Hive magic to help them, the Acolyte's staff. Imaru directed the Guardians to a special location within Savathun's throne world that held the information they needed, Savathun's Spire, found at the top of the sanctum of the Brood Queen. Fighting past legions of Lucent Hive ordered by the Witch Queen to protect the Spire, regardless of Amaru's current orders, the Guardians' use of the Acolyte's staff allowed them to uncover the Spire and traverse its labyrinthine interior, while disrupting Scorn and Hive rituals impeding them. Despite the Lucent Hive and their Scorn prisoners hampering their efforts, the Guardians managed to clear the Spire, slaying its wardens Dual Eye, Hiruk, and Zerai, reconfiguring the light, seeing through it using crystals the Witch Queen had made, and locate a ritual site beneath it. During this, the Guardians were given recordings of the Witch Queen by Amaru, messages she left behind in the event the Guardians ever required her aid after killing her. In one message, Savathun states that they cannot defeat Xivu-Arath conventionally, for her sister feeds off of all conflict and grows stronger from it. Therefore, to defeat Xivu-Arath, they must use the logic that the Hive God of War believes to be absolute, their sword logic. Specifically, Eris Morn must become a Hive God, gathering power through the Tith system until she is strong enough to challenge Xivu-Arath, for only a Hive of equal strength can do so. Ikora immediately objects to this, believing they cannot utilize Hive magic in such a way, or play by the sword logic's rules, without unfavorable consequences. Eris Morn states that there is no other way to challenge Xivu-Arath, as simply maintaining their current stalemate with her or outright confronting her is not feasible, for they would eventually lose in either case. Despite fearing what would happen to Eris, Ikora reluctantly agrees to allow Eris to proceed with her ritual. Using Hive magic, Eris's body transforms with new Hive biology, capable of feeding off the battles the Guardians partake in, allowing her to grow in strength. With the ritual complete, Eris Morn had emerged as the new Hive God of Vengeance, and made a base for herself within the throne world she would call the Anthenium, which the helm was connected to via a portal. To begin the quest to make Eris stronger, the Guardians located a prison called the Obelete beneath Savathun's spire, which also housed various ritual sites. The altars of summoning, and acting as her acolyte, they battled with prisoners and retainers of the Witch Queen during her earlier studies with the light, which included Vex, the Ternary Mines, and forgotten Lucent hives such as Alaknar and Haruz, both retainers of Savathun. Defeating them allowed Eris to gain strength from the Tith system as planned. However, Ikora remained deeply disturbed by the circumstances, seeing Eris and the Guardian revel in the slaughtering, but admits she cannot deny the results. Eris would later clarify the nature of her transformation to the Guardian, stating that her transformation didn't empower her as she expected, but instead it refined her, making Eris herself, which concerned Ikora, but Eris remains resolute. She would further inform the Guardian on the nature of the Hive's sword logic, and of Xivu-Arath's devotion to it. To the Hive, the sword logic is the only way to prove one's right to exist, while the rest die in terror. But Eris states the Hive's logic is flawed, as she had used it to acquire the power needed to claim her vengeance, just as she did with Crota. Oryx and Savathun were felled. Eris was able to see past Xivu-Arath's devotion to the sword logic as a desperate childish cry to prove it right, and using it against her would deny her its vindication. Further, Eris states that while she may use the sword logic, she is using it not out of desperation as the Hive do, but out of desire. Immaru offers insight on his own, but scoffs that philosophy will defeat Xivu-Arath. He offers a recording of an argument Xivu-Arath had with Savathun not long after Oryx had been slain years ago, where Xivu-Arath desired to avenge their brother, just as he attempted to avenge his son. But the Witch Queen mocked her desire for revenge, stating that by the Guardians killing Crota and Oryx, then both have deserved death. Further, Savathun states that Oryx's attempt to avenge his son's death only proved him a hypocrite, mocking Xivu-Arath for being the same. The Hive God of War, however, refused to accept this, believing that Eris, she who orchestrated Oryx's demise, would take up his mantle, take her true shape, and eventually face her. The Witch Queen, however, remained unimpressed, citing her sister as a vain child that Oryx spoiled rotten, before stating that she will not always get her way. With the recording finished, Immaru theorizes that Xivu-Arath sees Eris as Oryx's heir, and that this was part of Savathun's plan, which makes the Hive Ghost wonder what the former Lightbearer is doing. With all this new insight, the Guardian continues in their mission to gathering Tiths for Eris, whether it be in Shax's Crucible or within the altars of summoning, growing stronger with each kill. In addition, Eris provides attunements for the Guardian in strengthening her powers and their abilities in using Hive magic. The Guardian would receive one more message from Immaru, again taunting them regarding his dislike of their alliance. It goes through with the plan because the Lightbearer had ordered it, along with him to give the Guardians whatever they need, giving them another recording of Savathun's as proof. Of course, Immaru does so in his usual brutal, matter-of-fact style, encouraging the Guardian to help Eris grow stronger with Tiths, mocking them once again for being part of the Witch Queen's plan. In time, Eris calls upon the Guardian in her Hive form once more within her Anatheum. She informs them that ever since she assumed her new form, a whisper from the deep called to her, goading her to give in to her vengeance. But Eris refused, and promises to destroy her Hive form along with the rest once Xivu-Arath is dealt with. However, Eris warns the Guardian that the Hive God of War will not fall to might alone, for she has fed off conflict since the first war song. Nonetheless, Eris states that each Tith strengthens her as well as thrills her, but informs the Guardians that her cards speak of change. A great shadow rises from the sea of blood. As she explains, in essence, something is coming. That turned out to be Xivu-Arath herself, as her brood managed to breach into Savathun's spire, turning to her sister's court into her battlefield. After taking out Moloch, edge of Xivu-Arath, the Guardians worked to clear out the rest of the spire of Xivu-Arath's forces, even as the war god taunted them and issued her challenge towards Eris Morn. As the Guardians ascended the spire, slaying any scorn before Xivu-Arath's brood could, the war god continued to taunt Eris, goading her to accept the sword logic as truth and face her as Hive. but Eris Morn refused to give in to Zevarath's words, before threatening her that once their clash is over, she will be free, leaving the Zevarath's worm to gnaw at her before she starves. Ikora claims that they must rethink their plan, but Eris states that they can't, for Zevarath's presence only proves its efficacy, and that while they cannot directly fight the Hive God of War, they can still hold the line against her until a guardian is found. As such, Eris Morn instructs the Guardians to return to the Obsolete to claim the tiths she needs before Zevarath claims them as spoils for her eternal war. Ikora once again voices her discomfort in their plan, but Eris Morn merely states that she doesn't have to. Immaru quickly makes contact with the Guardian to make haste in reaching his Lightbearers, Obsolete, citing that Zevarath breaching into Savathun's throne world wasn't part of the plan. Returning to the Witch Queen's Obsolete, entering into the altars of summoning, the Guardians already hear the voice of Zevarath herself, taunting them on how even warriors of the light honor the sword logic, claiming that her sister's spire and the altars is proof. At the altar of devotion, the Guardians managed to slay Dolox and Kaza, talons of Zevarath, before they could claim tiths for Zevarath. Fortunately, their deaths serve as more tiths for Eris, just the same which only leaves Zevarath incensed. As the Guardians neared the next altar, Zevarath summoned her best general, Leviathan Eater, Bane of the Ammonites, to face them. However, before the battle could proceed any further, the Leviathan Eater withdraws, leading Ikora to believe he was testing the Guardians' capabilities, but he would be back with reinforcements once Zevarath has been assembled. Ikora continues to have deep conversations about the plan and how it affects Eris, especially after learning of her newly forgotten bond with Asha. From her and Sloan, Ikora and the Guardian learned that Asha helps contain the energy of the tiths they collect for Eris. But if the ritual goes on for too long, then Eris will remain trapped as a hive, while Asha will become twisted into something horrible. With this knowledge, Ikora consults with Eris once more, who, while remaining resolute, is troubled that her covenant with Asha has led her to suffer pain and Eris gains power from it. Nonetheless, Eris refuses to let the ritual change her into something she is not. Further, Eris states to Ikora that, however regrettable, when she first invokes the worm gods in her ritual, Asha was the one who answered. As such, Eris states that the risk of the ritual is theirs to make. In time, Ikora reports regarding Eris's transformation, and covenant with Asha didn't sit well with those in the tower, herself included. Nonetheless, despite the doubts, Ikora still has faith in Eris, as despite what happened to Eris in Elise's timeline, who succumbed to despair and became corrupted by darkness, Eris now remains resolute, and has friends who support her. Within the throne world, Eris discovered a hidden location above Savathun's Obsolete, where the Mbaru engine is housed, the method where Savathun attempted to reinterpret her brother's logic. Much to Amaru's protests, the Guardians enter and partake in the Mbaru engine. Yet, despite the confusion the engine attempted to inflict, the Guardians managed to clear the trials. This led to Eris to hope that more of the Witch Queen's secrets will open to them. After handling more of Ikora's unease with the plan and conquering another trial of the Witch Queen's Mbaru engine, the Guardian answers Eris Morn's summons, taking her hive form once more, proclaiming that this will be their final tith. Eris Morn states that she has Ikora prepare something for the Vanguard vaults, for Transmat when the time is right, but when she will remind Savathun and Zevarath were once born as prey. Returning to the Obsolete, Immaru voices his fears that Zevarath began to summon the Leviathan Eater, proclaiming his intent to flee, but Eris Morn faces the Hive Ghost, to stay as the Guardian opens the way to the Altar of the Sword, where they challenge Zevarath's champion. Despite the Leviathan Eater's power and streams of Hive support, the Guardian manages to hold their own against him, forcing Zevarath to prepare a bombardment of the area. Using her Hive magic, Eris was able to create a barrier strong enough to withstand the bombardment, forcing the Leviathan Eater to charge, breaching the barrier. In one last clash, the Guardians managed to slay the Leviathan Eater, empowering Eris and preparing for her the last part of the plan. At the altar's center, Eris had Ikora transmit the item she requested, Savathun's body, for Immaru to resurrect. Immaru protests, citing that Xivu Arath is still a threat, but Eris Morn orders him to proceed, as he will not get another chance. Agreeing, Immaru raises Savathun back from death, with the Witch Queen commenting on Eris's hive form, claiming that she had come out of her shell, but the Hive God of Vengeance merely replied that she would be the Witch Queen's ruin, slicing her throat, surprising all present. In that act, Eris gained power from Savathun's death, gaining all of the power she had accumulated since the last time she had died, before being separated from her worm, which was over a millennia ago. Combining that with the tiths that the Guardian had gathered, Eris had now become the most powerful Hive God, surpassing even Xivu Arath. Using her power, Eris Morn cast a spell that banished the Hive God of War from her throne world, rendering her mortal and unable to draw strength from the tiths before fainting. Not long after completing her plan, Eris Morn, back in human form, informs the Guardians following the ritual. Savathun had kept her end of the bargain, by informing Ikora of the secret the Vanguard needs to pass through the temple upon the traveler. Further, as part of a peace offering, the Witch Queen was allowed to return to her throne world, but the Vanguard would not only be allowed to have the Vanguards continue to venture into her domain, but also take custody of Immaru, thereby allowing the Guardians to destroy her connection to the light, should they believe Savathun is endangering humanity. Ikora and Eris agreed to the terms, citing that while keeping both Hive Gods alive would be a risk, the Warlock Vanguard believes that the witness must be their priority. In addition, Ikora believes that, at least with Savathun, they have her connection to the light in the hands, and with Xivu Arath, she is now rendered vulnerable after being banished from her throne world, thereby making her more open to being confronted. Further, the Guardians continue to partake in the altars of summoning with Ikora's permission, as doing so prevents Savathun from acquiring tiths, which would further her experiments, though the Witch Queen would continue to comment and taunt them on their efforts. Later on, though the Guardians completed all the trials of the Imbaru engine, they return after the Witch Queen mentioned something for them in it. Entering the engine and prevailing against the various puzzles and tricks in their path, the Guardians find what Savathun had left them, a pure Amakara egg. Believing the egg may have been from Riven's clutch, and that it was the Witch Queen's possession leaves Ikora and Eris stunned, but begin to debate on what to do with it. Eris believes they should destroy the egg, due to her past experience with the Amakara, but Ikora believes they should bring it back to the Anthenium for study, believing that the wish-granting creature may be what the Vanguard needs to pass through the Witness's gateway. After some convincing, Eris agrees, but after the Guardian brings the egg back to the Anantheum to be secured, they recall a strange pattern on Savathun's wings after she had been resurrected. Bringing their findings to Eris, she concludes that the pattern is the wish they need, the one we would cherish, as Riven spoke of, knowing of the Amakara's notorious nature to twist and subvert the intention of the wishes they grant. Ikora gathers all available knowledge on them, and consults with the Wall of Wishes within the Dreaming City, wanting to ensure that the wish they make to save all of humanity will be fully complete. So what did you guys think of the Clash of the Hive Gods? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Sith Citadel Discord, links in the description, and consider becoming a join member or sending a super thanks if you wish to further support the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.